rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events, this is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. It's kind of hard to be, upbeat and exciting when things that are very, shall we say, disturbing in the world. And what in particular, what I am referring to, of course, is the recent tragedy that just happened this morning in Georgia. And so I'm going to talk about that tonight. And it's not, I'll get into it here in just a moment. But first, before I do, let's go ahead and get the Pledge of Allegiance going. Tonight, it is 3 Chevy's turn to lead. And again, at the end, what I am going to do is I'm going to ask for a moment of silence after we are done to say a prayer for those 4 lives lost, 2 teachers and 2 students down in Georgia as victims of a tragedy. So let's go ahead and, if you are of mine, please stand, remove your hat if you wear one, and put your hand over your heart, and let's follow along with 3 Chevy and the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, folks. Thank you for that. Through 3 Chevy, for sure. And definitely thanks for supplying that for us. Okay, also too, tonight is, of course, Whiskey Wednesday.
Down to business.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
And for tonight's Whiskey Wednesday, I'm trying to clear out the shelf, so this is a repeat from Saturday. I'm drinking Walcott, the Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey here in my hand. And of course, I am drinking it out of the True Grit Roots Network glass with my rocks in the bottom. You can see them there. Good stuff. And they have a special message for you because there is a special event going on tomorrow. Let's take a listen.
Celebrating TGRN Blues 1-year anniversary. Let's dive into our incredible journey. This past year, we've played tunes from over 1,662 amazing artists. We've had 182 jaw-dropping interviews with blues hitmakers, newsmakers, and industry shapers. And guess what? We premiered 10 world album releases exclusively for you. The secret? Our passionate air personalities who live and breathe the blues, producing and hosting non-stop incredible digital radio 24/7. So here's to the artists, the fans, and the unstoppable spirit of the blues that we connect from all corners of the globe every single hour. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the love. And here's to many more years of keeping the blues alive, one song at a time on TGRN Blues.
That's right, folks. TGRN Blues turns 1 year old tomorrow. And they, of course, are, and of course, I'm part of that too. But they, of course, are very thankful for everything that you folks have done for them, listening to them all around the globe and everywhere else. It's been a long time coming, and in fact, we were talking about it or chatting about it in a text message, and a lot of people don't understand how long it took to actually get the thing off the ground. I and my buddy Oogie have been talking about it for close to 10 years, I think, or maybe even over 10 years. I lose track. But anyway, he and I, it's all been his vision, and I've just helped by putting it together in terms of the technological side of it. So congratulations to TGRN Blues. And if you want to check us out, go to tgrn.net. That's tgrn.net right there. There you go. And you can go and check us out. You can listen right there in your browser, or you can also download the app, as well as finding us in the catalog of digital radio stations within the iHeartRadio app, the Live 365 app, or the Odyssey app, AUDACY app as well. So go and check us out, tgrn.net. That's True Grit Roots Network with TGRN Blues, based out of Austin, Texas. And congratulations on 1 year ago tomorrow. 1 year ago tomorrow. All right. So let's go on to this. I saw this breaking news occurring as I was perusing some of the other news sites, and of course it gave me pause. But here in the Epic Times, there's a Georgia high school shooting that happened today. There were 4 dead. The suspect is reported to be a 14-year-old boy who is in custody. And officials are asking for patience from the public because, of course, they are saying, and this is Barrow County Sheriff Judd Smith says, this is going to take us multiple days for us to get answers as to what happened and why this happened. Well, the good news, any good news can be brought from this, is that we may have the ability to get to the final answer because of the fact that the perpetrator is in custody alive rather than being dead. Apparently around 10:30 a.m., officers from multiple law enforcement agencies and fire EMS personnel were dispatched to the high school in reference to a reported active shooting, Barrow County Sheriff's Office has stated. They also said at the time casualties had been reported. However, details on the number and their condition was not available at the time this came out. We do know now that there was 4 dead, and I believe a small number wounded, but I'm not exactly sure how small. Different reports have been coming in, so I don't have all of the details yet. But the sad part about this entire situation, outside of the obvious, where, 4 people lost their lives at the hands of what is likely to be discovered over the next several days as a, I messed that up. I'm supposed to go back here. Okay. Well, that's cool. What will probably be discovered as a mentally deranged individual. I mean, you kind of have to be in order to take a life, a wanton life for no reason, an innocent life for no reason. But the challenge here is the fact that it didn't even take very long. It was only about 3 or 4 hours before all of the sycophantic leftist media, non-media, social media, influencer morons to all jump on it and immediately start calling for for Congress to do something. And I just have to ask this question. And I ask this question every time something like this comes up. Isn't murder already illegal? Think about that. Isn't murder already illegal? And in most states, isn't it already illegal to carry a weapon onto school property, since most states have gun-free zones around their schools? Isn't that already illegal? So, not that I'm trying to like sweep this under the rug, because it's not. It's a tragedy. It's a horrible situation for anybody that, you know, wants to send their kid off to school, and especially now, this is like the first parts of school here in the U.S. Some places have been going for about a week and a half. Others maybe a little bit longer than that. And still others just started this week. But the thing about it is all these leftist losers want to do is add more laws when it's already illegal to kill somebody. It's already without probable, provocation or probable cause. Criminals, they just don't care. And even if we were to add a law somewhere about this, what law could be added? I've never had a single answer to this question. What law could have been added to the books in Georgia in this particular case that would have stopped this from happening? What law? What law? Somebody tell me, somebody somewhere give me the answer to that question. Because for the life of me, I can't figure out why. It's because all of a sudden we have to have a law that's going to stop people from or trample on people's constitutional rights because of the fact that this tragedy happened, and there's already laws in place that are supposed to stop this. Why didn't they work? Why is it that the laws that we already have on the books are not working to stop this? And, unfortunately, the people go and they take a look and they're like, oh, and they try to use the arguments of, well, if you didn't have guns, you wouldn't have this problem. Yeah, and if London didn't have knives, they wouldn't have a problem either. Or if we couldn't, get bomb-making materials off the shelf to make crude and rudimentary bombs, we wouldn't have bomb makers either. What law? What rule? What standard? What is it going to be that's going to stop this from happening? I mean, the very idea that they could have added a law to the books that would have stopped a criminal, and in this particular case, it was a 14-year-old boy who, my understanding, being at 14, unless I definitely don't know all the laws in the state of Georgia, but I can tell you, a 14-year-old can't go out and buy a weapon, isn't even supposed to carry one unsupervised. So how is it that we could, just magically come up with some sort of a law that would make this function? And of course, the regular shtick is, well, if we had universal background checks. Really? Like criminals go through background checks. Criminals walk into a gun store and go, hey, you know what? Yeah, I got a record, but yeah, let's go ahead and run a background check on me anyway. Really? Now, I'm not saying that this kid, this perpetrator, or alleged perpetrator, is a criminal. But the point here is that, what is it that you're going to be able to do here? Just explain to me what you're going to be able to do here. Because I've shown the statistics on this program, I've expanded them on my social media pages. Assuming, and I'm not saying that this is the case, but assuming, because of course, the big black scary rifle is the first thing that everybody goes to. Okay, the first thing is that everybody goes to is the big black scary rifle, the AR-15. Assuming that it's an AR-15 that was in the hands of this person, which statistically speaking is the lowest, it's even lower than shotguns, the lowest weapon used in these kinds of things. The handgun is the more popular because it's easy to conceal. It can hold a lot of rounds and is more suited for close quarters combat or close quarters actions like what you see here. But I'm just trying to understand where you think, without addressing the root causes of gun violence in America, which the root causes can basically be boiled down to 3 to 4 points, depending upon how detailed you actually want to get. And in my view, those at least minimum 3 points are these. 1, criminal behavior. End of story. 2, mental health and mental illness. Okay, not being diagnosed properly. Maybe even as a potential, which this is one that not many people actually take a look at, but here's one. What about all the medicines that have been shoved down our kids' throats? Everything has a prescription nowadays. Oh, your kid has a hard time paying attention in class? Well, give him this pill. Oh, your kid is, jumping out of his skin because they don't let him run around on recess and get all that energy out. Give him a pill. So 2 would be mental illness. 3, and this one, the left definitely does not like. But when you're looking at gun violence and not just mass shootings and school shootings like this, I'm taking gun violence as a whole, which happens in cities like Chicago on a daily basis, yet nothing is ever said about that. But gun violence as a whole across the country is vastly perpetrated by a certain segment of society that has cultural challenges with it. And I'm not necessarily going to call it out, but I do have one question for you. What the hell do you think the thug life is? The whole idea of glorifying the thug life. And here's the last one. And this one definitely irritates the shit out of the left. And I apologize for the swear word. But stuff like this just tends to get my goat. I'm going to stand on my soapbox for a couple of more minutes. But the last one is that can help resolve this situation is to focus on things such as the family. Focus on faith. Focus on community support. What we have here, people, is a lack of those 4 things in life. You want to fix this problem, address those 4 items. Because that is what is going to get us back to where we were. Now, as a lot of people in my chat have pointed out, there was a time where you could drive to high school with a rifle in a gun rack in the back of the pickup truck. And nothing happened. There were rifle teams in high school. There were competitions, rifle competitions in high school. Not a big problem. And this was in the 40s and 50s and even into the 60s. Some may have even extended all the way to the 70s. And what do we have in terms of a big challenge today? Well, one of the biggest is mental illness. Now, a lot of people, in particular on the left, blame Reagan for removing the mental illness, the mental health, public health structure. But the reality of it is that public health structure was actually taken out by a Democrat-controlled Senate and House of Representatives, because what a lot of people fail to understand, and it's just as true today as it was back in the 1980s when Reagan was elected, the legislature makes the laws. The legislature holds on to the purse strings. The legislature is the one that determines things like taxes and so on and so forth. And what do you have? You have a failure in the public system. But it's not just a failure in the public system. We also have things such as latchkey kids not having a parent at home when they come home. They're left to their own devices. Speaking of devices, we have devices that are allowing our children to watch whatever it is that they want because the parents and parental guidance is gone in a lot of cases. What happens? Little Johnny needs to be entertained. Let me whip out my tablet. He can watch some YouTube videos or TikTok or whatever. Never mind even remotely watching over what it is that little Johnny is looking at. Never mind the fact that we have these kids who are being picked on and bullied every day, and yet we're told that resolving our differences with our fists is wrong, that toxic masculinity is a problem, that being able to handle yourself, no. It's a lot easier to talk out your feelings. You know how we handled problems back in the day? And by back in the day, I'm talking like all the way back to, the 80s. You duked it out. You shook hands afterward. You took your shots if you were on the losing end, or you gave your shots if you happened to be on the winning end. And you shook hands afterward, and that was it. It was done and over with. 9 times out of 10, it never continued. Because it was finished. And yet today, if something like that were to happen, oh my gosh, the left would just freak. And yet we have gangs of kids that you see on the internet that are beating up on other children all the time. That it's a common occurrence for this stuff to happen. We have a problem in our society, and what it boils down to, in my opinion, point number 4, which is the focus on the family, faith, and cult and community support. That's the biggest change that we've had in the last 40 years. We no longer have a backstop of faith. We no longer have a backstop of family. You know, when I was a kid, I was picked on. And I talked to my stepdad, because my dad wasn't in the picture at that time, but I talked to my stepdad, and I was like, "Hey, how do I resolve this?" And he looked at me and he basically told me, "You have only one choice. You can either continue to take it, or you can stand up and strike back. Don't start the fight, but make sure you damn well better finish it." Now, today, that would be considered toxic masculinity. Oh, no, that's wrong. That's wrong. But in reality, it resolves the issue, because what it does is it not only makes the person who is being victimized understand that, hey, I can actually survive something like this. And at other times, you can also realize and learn to depend upon yourself when there is no other help. Now, that being said, I didn't go around and pick on people. I didn't go around and start fights. But I also didn't stand idly by after incidents like that. This trouble that we're having, this is not a gun problem. And regardless of what the left tries to tell you, guns don't shoot people. I can take a weapon, I can cock it, load it first, then cock it, set it on a counter or a table or something. Just set it in the middle of the room. And if nobody touches it, and nothing else untoward happens, barring a mechanical malfunction, it'll sit there without the trigger being pulled for days, months, and potentially even years without firing a shot. Because unlike the left, people with actual brains realize that that weapon, when it is not a mechanical problem, that weapon actually needs somebody to activate it by pulling the trigger. And especially the fact of today's weapons. Now, you could say some of the older weapons from like the 1800s or whatever, there could be some slipshod stuff from that time frame. But anything today, you have a safety? Yeah, nothing. Nothing. It needs someone to activate it. And in the words of Ronald Reagan, it's time to reinstill the American precept that society isn't the problem with the lawbreakers, it's the lawbreaker. See, unfortunately, whether or not they have mental issues or anything else, the one thing that you have to understand is every single one of us who goes through life has this thing known as free will. That free will allows us to make choices. We make choices in life. And our choices are what define us and turn us into what we are. But see, we can't sit here and use the blame game, and we can't sit here and say, oh, it was, I was abused. I was destroyed. I was, abused as a child or whatever. No, you have a choice. I'm not saying that it's going to be easy. I'm not saying that you can't get help, but you have a choice. Everyone has a choice, and it is your responsibility to make the right choice. We're not going to get it out of today's society with these leftist lunatics that are in charge right now that are telling our children all these different things that, oh no, your feelings are what matters the most. No. Making the right decision is what matters the most. Just because you feel like you should go and you want to go and shoot that bully doesn't make it right. There's other ways to handle situations like this, yes, that are less lethal. But the problem is that we don't teach our kids how to handle rejection. We don't teach our kid because where do you think the idea of everyone gets a participation trophy? And for an example, in the workplace when you're an adult, oh, no. We have diversity, equity, and inclusion in this. You don't need to be the best of the best. You just need to exist, and you're fine. These are all leftist propaganda crap that's being foisted on our children, and it is helping to perpetuate things of this nature. This is a tragedy. And unfortunately, the left is going to use it as a crutch to push an agenda. And when they push the agenda, folks, this is all they're going to talk about, I guarantee you, for the next week at least. We're going to wait on details to come out about this one. Hopefully it won't take as long as what it did for the Covenant shooter to come out. Yes, the Covenant shooter was the one that it was in Nashville that went in and shot those kids in the Christian school. I don't know if anybody noticed this, but the manifesto was released, or at least a good portion of it. They're calling it the entire diary. However, there is some suggestion that there are other diaries available or around. But the FBI cited the original reason, by the way, as they didn't want to release the text because the diary contained detailed plans. But apparently, that isn't the case. This is it in the Daily Wire. The Tennessee Star apparently has had this nearly 100-page journal of the 28-year-old woman who killed 3 adults and 3 children at the Covenant School in Nashville, Tennessee. Now, again, this isn't anything that I'm saying here. This is not an attack on any given person or any given group of people, but you need to understand that sometimes there are things that click in the head and it makes you wonder why. Well, in this particular case, apparently, according to her writings, she was obsessed with what was considered white privilege and also transgenderism. I'm also seeing that, and it's not an ironic situation, that was the word that I was going to use, but they also are showing in the journal too that she self-proclaimed herself as being autistic, prone to obsession and depression. Apparently, in the journal, the 2 most animating obsessions were far left-wing ideas, including an idea that children will kill themselves if they cannot get gender surgery. Now, this I've talked about on the program. The vast majority who go through puberty, who feel as though they are in the wrong body during puberty, okay, generally grow out of it. There are those few that don't. And for them, you need either further help or whatever. I'm not an expert on that, but I can only tell you the statistics on it. I can also tell you that several of those who transition, not everyone, but several, a very large majority who do make the transition, regret it later in life. Doing something like transitioning your body is it's an incredible undertaking. But that being said, the idea that you can, the idea of what the left is trying to push toward these people, these children, it's disgustingly barbaric. You want to help these kids. You don't necessarily want to enable them to live in their fantasy world. For an example, you don't want a child, a human child, to think on a regular basis. Now, imagination is one thing. Playing as, say, an animal, a cat, dog, whatever, as a part of play is fine. But to enable it as a regular occurrence, such that, oh, yes, you're a human being on the outside. You know, God created you as a human being, but you know what? You can decide that you're a dog or a cat. This is not normal behavior. And if they are truly convinced that they are a dog or a cat, they need more than just assurance. They need assistance. Well, apparently, you know, I mean, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but this is just essentially confirming what a lot of us believed. And again, regardless of what it is, you have to be, for the most part, to want to kill somebody else and to actually carry it out. Something is wrong with inside your head to do this. So, again, just keep in mind, keep the 4 people in your prayers, and this is not going to stop. It just isn't going to stop because the left doesn't want to resolve it, doesn't want to do the things I showed you I think it was actually the episode, one of my episodes near this Nashville shooting, where I went through what the Secret Service put together. The Secret Service put together a plan in order to go and like harden the schools and prevent some things like this from happening. And yet nobody wants to do anything about that. They don't want to harden the schools. They don't want to remove the gun-free zones. They don't want to make it, put up fences or, special security things on the school. They don't want to have people with weapons on the school grounds, even though all of that would harden the target. It's really funny, and I'm only saying funny because it's kind of interesting. When you talk to security experts, and they essentially will tell you that there's a few things that you can do in order to deter what is essentially what they would consider the opportunistic thief, for an example, in your house. One thing that you can do is you can post some signs saying that you have a security system. You can post signs talking about having a dog. You can put out dog food. You can put out, dog bowls, dog dishes, dog toys, things of that nature that would be just enough to deter the regular criminal who might not want to mess with any of those. Now, at the same time, that doesn't mean that you're going to stop the determined person who's going to do it. But you can at least discourage somebody who may look at your property as an opportunistic thing. And these are things that, glaring signs that say this is a gun-free zone, they tell the opposite to a potential shooter. That, hey, this is a soft target. You got wide open space here. You can come in and do whatever it is that you want here because there won't be any resistance. That's the opposite of deterrence. This is not what we need here, folks. We don't need those signs. What we need are signs stating the opposite. We need to have things out there that show and demonstrate, folks, that, hey, this is not somebody that you want to mess with. And this is not a place that you want to go and mess with. This is part of the reason why those Texas schools have been putting out signs saying, we will. Because we have weapons on campus, we will defend our kids. We need to rethink this entire thing about gun control and how to protect our children. We need to rethink what already has been tried and yet does not work. You're not going to fix the underlying root causes. The least you can do is attempt to head off the symptoms. All right. Enough about that. All right. Hey, I know we're only partially into the program, but I just want to tell you that if you have any kind of an inkling to support the show, would love to show off your support for the show, you can go and check out my logoed gear store. This is, I believe, logo number 3. Right here on my American Perspective t-shirt. And you can check out all of my logoed gear by going to store.americanperspective.online. That's store.americanperspective.online. My News over on Rumble picked up a Racerback tank top, the women's Racerback tank top, just recently here. She just received it not too long ago. I think it was just in the last couple of days. And from what I understand, she loves it. I'm putting words in her mouth, I think. We'll see. She'll probably yell at me here in just a minute. But go to store.americanperspective.online and get yourself American Perspectivized. Anyway. All right. I appreciate the support. I really do. All right. So the last night I was talking about Tim Walz and his brother. Well, guess what? Apparently, some of his Arkansas family are jumping into the fray. And how, you ask? Well, Daily Mail published this. Some of Tim Walz's family members reveal that they are backing Trump in a bombshell leaked photo. And take a look at this photo right here. This is some of the Walz, Arkansas family members, apparently 8 total members of the Minnesota Governor Tim Walz's family in Nebraska were posed for an image showing their support for Donald Trump. This, of course, is after Tim Walz's brother Jeff came out and basically said, yeah, I wouldn't trust that guy. I wouldn't put him in the White House. I definitely wouldn't put him in as a leader. I mean, this is pretty damning. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, assuming the picture is actually legit. My understanding is that it is. There's no reason why. I have nothing, I have nothing to indicate that it might be fake or staged or whatever, but yeah. So, if your own family is coming out and saying, yeah, this is not a good thing for you, yeah, that could be a problem. So I guess the photo quickly went viral on the socials, and I admit I saw it there too. But by a bunch of Trump supporters, they say MAGA users, who say that his own family's opposition to his candidacy is proof that we should be wary of voting for a Harris-Walz ticket. No kidding. I've been trying to tell you this all day long and several weeks now, ever since they announced. This guy is horrible. I'm telling you, this guy is horrible. But anyway, so his brother, of course, who lives in Florida too, Jeff Walz, 67, who lives in Florida. He posted about his brother's character and basically saying, of course, and I talked about this last night, I'm 100% opposed to all his ideology, which is socialist, just so you know. Now Jeff apparently now admits he didn't mean to influence voters with his social media activity. He said, it wasn't my intent. He told News Nation this. It wasn't my intent. It wasn't our intent as a family to put something out there to influence the general public. I was getting a lot of feedback from my friends, old acquaintances, thinking that I was feeling the same way that my brother did on the issues. And I was trying to clarify that just to friends. He used Facebook, which of course wasn't the right platform to do that, he said. But I will say, I don't agree with his policies. That's fine. So, anyway. Yeah. The family is not happy right now. Anyway, why does this not surprise me? I mean, I could just imagine if I were to run. I don't think my family would be, maybe not all of them, but anyway. Well, apparently, we're now seeing some of the result of the no bump off of the DNC, and also showing that there are some other polls. These are some more local polls, by the way. Where the race may not be as much in the bag in certain states as what Kamala Harris would and the Harris campaign would like for you to believe. So here, this is from Click on Detroit. And there was a new poll that they did locally that shows where Michigan voters stand in the Trump-Harris race. This is a WDIV Detroit News survey, asked Michigan voters where they stand on the race for president between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. And apparently, Donald Trump ekes out Kamala Harris 44.7% by 43.5%. So it's close, but it may not be in Harris's camp in terms of where this might end up with. Now, what's funny is, of course, Michigan is one of the states where they will not allow Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to drop. So, his 4.7% that shows up as a part of the survey could theoretically go directly to Donald Trump. And if that's the case, oh, and I'm sorry, I didn't zoom in on this. So here, let me get in there. So there's the numbers with 4.8 undecided and 2.3 for other third-party options and 4.7 to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. If Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was able to successfully tell people, hey, I can't get off the ballot, they're not going to elect me, so you gotta vote for Donald Trump because I'm no longer in the race. Well, yeah, you could look at some serious points being scored by Donald Trump. Now, keep in mind, most people think that Kamala Harris, anybody that was voting for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. while Biden was in the race, jumped back to Kamala Harris as soon as she jumped in or was anointed as the choice for the Democrat cabal of elites. But apparently the race also shifts a little bit when you start looking at just the 91% of voters who say that they are definite voters. And that's this down here. So this one here, you can see 45.7% go to Kamala Harris if they are absolutely sure they're going to vote, and 44.1% but Donald Trump. But realistically, that's a little over 1.6% difference. So that could make a big difference. I don't know what the margin of error is here, but it's not that big, folks. And this is supposed to be in Michigan, where she is supposed to be leading the race quite well. And it's not just this local one either. There's others that are showing, there's other signs that are showing that Trump is actually gaining points on Harris. So here in Town Hall, Trump keeps gaining on Harris in this crucial election tracker. And here it is from Interactive Polls. They posted this on X. Now, this is from Nate Silver's 538. He did a forecast, apparently, yesterday, where he is still showing Trump having the best chance of winning of 56.7%. And he's got some of the swing states showing up now with a significant percentage of lead in his forecast. Now, keep in mind, this is not the popular vote, because, again, the popular vote, okay, the popular vote is not what votes in the presidency. It is the Electoral College. I've talked about this extensively. So all of these polls might be a popular kind of scenario, but they may not necessarily be what reflects in the Electoral College. And that is essentially where things like this forecast are coming into play. Speaking of which, in terms of forecasts and polls and so on and so forth, Polymarket has shifted big time. They have shifted bigly for the big man. 53% to 46% right now. And we haven't even hit September 10th's debate yet. Folks, not saying that we are going to win. This is going to come down to the wire. This is going to come down to the wire. I'm fairly certain of that. But if Trump can keep his cool in the debate, and Kamala Harris can lose her cool in the debate, and Trump can rope-a-dope, to use a Muhammad Ali term, rope-a-dope during the debate, you could see this number shift significantly. You could see this number shift significantly. That doesn't mean that we can't keep fighting, because I guarantee you, we gotta vote. We gotta overwhelm, make it, quote, too big to rig. All right. Yeah. So I don't know if anybody has also heard, I know I haven't really talked about it on this program, but I know it's been around. Brazil has decided to go the totalitarian route, and their Supreme Court apparently has decided that Elon Musk's X is enemy of the state numero uno. And I know that Brazil doesn't speak, I think they speak Portuguese, actually. I don't think they speak Spanish, but still, I thought it'd be kind of cool. But anyway, so Brazil has now decided to block X from anywhere in Brazil. And what they are doing is essentially they're blaming Elon supposedly for putting out misinformation. I'd like to understand how that happened, but at the same time, they also have told Starlink, which is another one of Elon's corporations, that they need to block X from their services. And Starlink, of course, said that it would comply. Now, Elon has been posting on X. He's been pointing out this is literally censorship, which, I mean, for any free speech country like ours, where we value free speech, and we understand that it comes with the danger of misinformation, disinformation, and potentially disgusting information, they are really pushing to try and keep him from transmitting in Brazil. Now, supposedly, there's also some assets that are down there that apparently they're talking about potentially freezing his assets that are there as well, too. And they've also talked about relinquishing having him relinquish his license to run Starlink down there as well. His communications license to run Starlink. So there's all kinds of things that are going on here, but I'm telling you right now, what this is basically a brazen demonstration of what will come here should Kamala Harris and the Democrats gain control in November. This is exactly what's going to happen. If you think that, I mean, all you have to do is just look at the announcement from Facebook from Mark Zuckerberg, where he essentially put out what was a very poor mea culpa to everybody, basically saying, oh, yeah, well, you know, he kind of screwed up back in 2020, and we suppressed the Hunter laptop story, and we suppressed, what has turned out to be true information about COVID. And we just, at the urging of the Biden-Harris administration, and we kind of sort of apologize. We erred, and we shouldn't do that anymore. Yeah, that doesn't help, dude. You didn't stand up for free speech. You didn't stand up for the principles of this country. And so now what you're doing is you're essentially blackballing, what you did is you blackballed conservatives. There's no coming back from that. And this is exactly what's going on here in terms of Brazil. Now, Starlink put out a statement with regards to their situation. And here the statement started, regardless of the illegal treatment of Starlink and freezing our assets, we are complying with the order to block access to X in Brazil, Starlink's statement said. We continue to pursue all legal avenues, as are others who agree that the recent orders violate the Brazilian constitution. They froze Starlink's accounts last week in order to pressure the company to cover fines imposed on X in Brazil, reasoning that both are part of the same Musk-controlled group. In response to the asset freeze, Starlink said on August 29th that it believes de Moraes' decision violated due process and was unconstitutional. So they're going to fight it. They're going to fight it down there. And as well, they should. They should fight it. But the reality of it is, folks, all you have to do is look outside the country in order to see what is coming here in potentiality with Democrat control. Now, one thing that has been verboten, and for those that don't know about verboten, verboten is actually the German word for I just had it and now it's gone. But anyway, essentially for, not something you don't want to talk about, what is verboten, is the talking about the election software that's in these machines and how easily it is to potentially hack into them and manipulate them. However, apparently, when the left talks about it, everything is fine. Oh, thank you, Woodens. Forbidden, I'm getting hit by my wonderful Rumbler Whiskey Warriors. They always keep me on track. Thank you, Forbidden. It slipped completely through my mind. But anyway, Politico is, which of course is Bullshitico, or the left-wing marching orders. But Politico put out a piece on this, and we'll get to that in just a quick moment. But first, I want to talk to you about theflagshirt.com. Now, you see some of the wonderful, colorful, patriotic shirts that I wear here on the program. No, buddy, I see it. Yeah, it's 9 p.m. But it's Wednesday night, buddy. I do an hour and a half show on Wednesdays. Don't forget that. But anyway, as I was saying, theflagshirt.com, you've seen me wear their patriotic shirts. They are a fantastic veteran-owned company. They run some incredible sales. They've got something going on right now for 9/11's commemorative t-shirts. You can go and check them out at theflagshirt.com. And by the way, if you want to get a special gift, $5 off your order from me, head to flagshirt.americanperspective.online first, and then take that code that you find there at flagshirt.americanperspective.online and go and put it into the promo code box at checkout when you go to check out with your order at theflagshirt.com. Go and check out all their styles. They've got men's, women's, children's. They've got all kinds of accessories that can go along with it. Socks, hats, sunglasses, things like that. And you can see it all at theflagshirt.com. Go to theflagshirt.com and get yourself patriotized. All right, so as I was telling you, Politico put out this piece, and it's kind of interesting that, we're not supposed to talk about this kind of stuff, but they went ahead and wrote this entire investigative story about it. Title says, Hacking Blind Spot, States Struggle to Vet Coders of Election Software. Now, this is in New Hampshire. A cybersecurity firm found troubling security bugs, along with the Ukrainian national anthem that was actually written into a voter database that was built with the help of an overseas subcontractor. Now, I know that they do this quite often, of course. I know that they do this quite often, is that you when you have certain bits and parts of a project, sometimes you go and you farm it out if you don't have the skill set to basically set this up. And what they found here was that election officials in New Hampshire decided to replace the state's aging voter registration database before 2024. They knew that the smallest glitch in election day technology could become fodder for people like us. So they turned to one of their best and only choices in the market, which was a small Connecticut-based IT firm that was just getting into the election software race. But last fall, as the new company, WSD Digital, raced to complete the project, New Hampshire officials made an unsettling discovery. The firm had offshored part of the work. That meant unknown coders outside of the U.S. had access to the software that would determine New Hampshire's election machines in November. Yeah. So, The revelation itself prompted the state to take a precaution that is rare. It hired a forensics firm, right here. It hired a forensics firm to scour the technology for signs that hackers had hidden malware deep inside the coding supply chain. The probe unearthed some unwelcome surprises. Software was misconfigured to connect to servers in Russia, and was the use of open source code. Overseen by a Russian computer engineer convicted of manslaughter, according to a person familiar with the examination. And granted anonymity because they were not authorized to speak about it. Yeah. Folks, seriously. I mean, we can't, we just can't. We have got to have a way to completely secure our elections. Doing things like this is difficult at best, and at worst, almost impossible, but still, it has to be done. We can't allow stuff like this. These are, I mean, this is a common everyday occurrence, I'm telling you, with coders. And so, yeah, it's just not a situation that we need to have happen. Now, they also say the scan had revealed another issue, which is that a program had hard-coded the Ukrainian national anthem into the database in an apparent gesture of solidarity with Kyiv. Yeah. How many other places, how many other companies use offshore subcontractors in order to code their security? And this, I mean, this honestly is probably one of the worst possible situations that you can deal with. That you hand out you hand out this stuff in order to get it secured, and some malicious coder from somewhere, a subcontractor, has gone and slipped in malicious code into the code base. What's worse is, more often than not, if you're not even paying attention, this can happen without you even knowing. Because what are you hiring that person to do? You're hiring them to do the job that you yourself can't. This is not the kind of situation that you want. And it's going to get worse before it gets better, folks. Now, even the fact that Politico is even investigating this and going on about this is something that I think is kind of incredible, really, because the left isn't supposed to discuss this. I mean, this would be agreeing with or assuring that, yes, our elections across the United States are not secure, which Politico has put out pieces before that is not something that we should be discussing. That 2020 in particular was the most secure and safe election ever. Yeah. Right. This is amazing that Politico's even doing this, to be honest with you. I'm surprised that the editors allowed that to go. But I guess, it's okay when the left talks about it. The right talks about it, it's a conspiracy theory. When the left talks about it, it's factual evidence. Yeah, right. All right. Well, speaking of the left not talking about things, and the left conspiracy theories, and the left putting in propaganda and everything else, guess what? Yes, folks, Mr. Potato Head is back. Who am I talking about? This piece in the Populist. Stelter is back at CNN. Mr. Potato Head himself is apparently back at CNN. Now, he's not going to be on a show. However, he is still authoring a newsletter called Reliable Sources, which was the name of his show before it got canceled. It's the Unreliable Sources, folks. Unreliable Sources. But Brian Stelter has now returned to CNN as a chief media analyst after a 2-year hiatus from the network. He apparently is replacing Oliver Darcy, who left to start his own news site. And of course, CNN's chief executive, Mark Thompson, praised Stelter as a top media commentator. Yeah. Mr. Potato Head is back. He is back. And he's going to be putting out his Reliable Sources newsletter, making television appearances, and producing digital content. Just when I thought the guy was gone and we were actually getting. And of course, right in front of the election. Yeah. So apparently he posted a notice on X about it. Yeah. Just. Oh, as if CNN couldn't get any worse. Yeah. I probably have more viewers than CNN. Whatever. This is going to be fun. This election season is going to be fun. Let's just put it that way. All right. Well, apparently, an Illinois judge rules that the Illinois public transit firearms carry ban is unconstitutional. So this is a win for us. Those of us who are into the Second Amendment, this is a win for us right here. This in the Epic Times, the state failed to meet their burden to show an American tradition of firearm regulation at the time of the founding. That's interesting. A judge recently ruled that the Illinois ban on carrying guns in public transportation and in transportation facilities is unconstitutional, citing the Supreme Court's 2022 landmark decision. He puts in here, after an exhaustive review of the parties' filings and the historical record as required by Supreme Court precedent, the court finds that defendants failed to meet their burden to show an American tradition of firearm regulation at the time of the founding that would allow Illinois to prohibit plaintiffs who hold concealed carry permits from carrying concealed handguns for self-defense onto the CTA and Metra. U.S. District Judge Ian D. Johnson wrote in his August 30th opinion, referring to 2 of the Chicago area transportation systems. The judge was citing the Supreme Court's decision, New York State Rifle and Pistol Association v. Bruin, which found a New York law unconstitutional and the ability to carry a pistol in public was a right guaranteed under the Second Amendment. I appreciate that. Definitely not Karen. Definitely not Karen says, you're on the left coast. We forgive pronouncing the S. Only problem is some of my family is in Chicago, so I should know how to pronounce it. Anyway, to continue here, the decision also said, meaning the decision of the New York State Rifle v. Bruin, the decision also said in future decisions, the judiciary should evaluate firearms regulations in light of the historical tradition of firearm regulation. So, yeah. If that's the case, then honestly, all gun control laws should be tossed out because there was no firearm regulation back when the founders were around. Granted, they didn't carry them all the time, but yeah, they should. I mean, if this is really true, there shouldn't even be carry permits, to be honest with you. As Jarhead 13 over on Rumble pointed out too. So anyway, This is just, oh my gosh. I sincerely hope that 2024 is the pivotal point in our system of government, that we eventually get to the point where we are back to what I would consider a constitutional, strict constitutional interpretation of everything, because of the fact that we don't need to be having these people running around. To be honest with you, we don't need any of this stuff. We don't need any of these additional rules and regulations. This is all part and parcel of a constitutional authority that we should have here in the United States. The Second Amendment in particular says shall not be infringed. Can't get much clearer than that. And I've talked about the Second Amendment plenty on this show, so I'm not going to rehash that. All right. Does anybody want a new job? I mean, seriously, does anybody else want a new job? Because there's a great one. It comes with a fantastic salary that is 3 times more than the national average. All you have to do is know and be a specialist of DEI. So here in the Daily Wire, Biden-Harris IRS is hiring a DEI specialist with a salary more than 3 times the national average. The Biden-Harris Internal Revenue Service is hiring a senior diversity practitioner who could make nearly $200,000 per year. In taxpayer funds, more than 3 times the national average income. I actually think I might apply to this thing, because I can be DEI. I mean, I can look at a person and I can say, hey, you don't look white, so you're diversified. And I want everybody to have equitable outcomes, meaning that you're all the same at the end of the race. No matter where you started, you all end up the same. And I can be very inclusive. I can include anybody and everybody in it, no matter what your metrics. That just throw it out. Maybe I should apply. What do you think? What do you think? So here, the position at the IRS is titled Senior Diversity and Inclusion Specialist. It has a salary range from $122,000 roughly, of $123,000 to $192,000. The average annual income in 2024 is almost $60,000, or $59,500 per year, making the upper end of the IRS's position salary range 3.2 times higher than the average income. So the specialist will be tasked with identifying best practices that will incorporate diversity and inclusion in training material, and acting as a, quote, trusted subject matter expert and source for diversity and inclusion educational services on the most complex and sensitive diversity and inclusion matters. Wow. So the applicant apparently selected for the role would also need to articulate a sound business case for diversity that includes education and awareness at all levels of the organization, while tracking diversity and inclusion education, marketing, and communication strategies. Yeah. I don't, yeah. So you want the job? Doesn't sound like it's really, extremely hard. It's kind of vague in terms of its description. Yeah. I guess the Daily Wire, I didn't see this part, but apparently the Daily Wire revealed that DEI training for IRS criminal investigators cited and included content from a far left transgender academic who called for the death of whiteness in a journal article titled Dead Hunky. Yeah. This is what our country has come down to. This is what our government has decided to. I just, can we just get government back to doing government things? Yeah. Elaine over on Facebook says your coworkers will probably be toxic and the work environment will probably be toxic also. Oh, Palms R Us over on Rumble says a DEI specialist means the government should hire more white people. I just, I don't understand. I really don't. Why, where, and then you wonder why we're getting like taxed crazily and, they want all this extra money in these other programs. I mean, Elon was posted on X something about all the government waste and government spending. Again, I refer to the wonderful, Institute on the Constitution of the United States. I don't see DEI specialist or any of that being a part of Article 1, Section 8 as a requirement of government. Yeah. So I don't think that's really something that the government needs to be getting into. As Becky over on Facebook says, I see character, not characteristics. I agree. Immutable characteristics. I mean, that's just crazy. Come on. Anyway, that's just horrible. Elaine agrees with Palms, but I doubt that any of us are 100% white. I look white, but I'm actually Heinz 57. Elaine, I am strictly Western European. So I'm about as white can get. French, German, Irish, Polish, and Scottish. Can't get any more white than that. I'm sorry. All right. Well, we're talking about job openings. We're talking about, the IRS purchasing or wanting to get a job at 3 times what the normal salary would be. Well, this article came out in the Epic Times. U.S. job openings drop to their lowest level since January of 2021. Is this after the 818,000 that got pulled? I mean, I just got to ask. July's job openings fell by 237,000 to 7.673 million for the month, said the Department of Labor Bureau and Statistics. July job openings here in the piece. Let's go ahead and zoom in. July's job openings, considered a key measure of labor demand, fell by that amount. At the same time, data for June was revised lower to show only 7.91 million unfilled positions instead of the previously reported 8.184 million it found. Economists who have been polled by Reuters and Dow Jones had forecasted about 8.1 million job openings for July. Layoffs also rose to 1.76 million, the most since March of 2023, the report found. The number of workers who quit their jobs also rose by a small amount to about 3.3 million. Total hiring rose in July to 5.5 million, Wednesday's report said, after it dropped to a 4-year low of 5.2 million in June. So, yeah, things are slowing down. The economy, by all metrics other than the ones that the Biden administration pushed out, showing that we are kind of, we're in sort of a, dare I say, stagnation scenario? Yeah. The piece goes on here. Wednesday's figures indicate that fewer companies are seeking to add workers, despite recent data showing that consumer spending is still growing. Last week, the government estimated that the economy expanded at a healthy 3% annual rate in April-June quarter. Yeah. Even as openings have fallen for the past 2 years, there are still roughly 1.1 job openings for every unemployed person. Well, then why aren't people going and getting into these jobs? That's what I want to know. That reflects the economy's continuing need for workers and marks a reversal from before the pandemic, when there were always more unemployed people than available jobs. Well, gee, I wonder why people are, yeah, it's just, none of these numbers actually make sense. They really don't. And this is why, coming out of the pandemic like we did, this is why a lot of people are trying to understand, where are we going with this entire situation in our economy? Our economy looks like it should, by some metrics, be going like gangbusters. And in other metrics, especially those who are being affected by inflation and prices that have skyrocketed over 20% over the last 3 years, we're all trying to understand, what does all of this indicate? Well, it indicates that we're not in a happy place under the Biden administration. And we can make all that change in 2024 in November 5th. Make your choices wisely, folks. Choose to continue down the Biden-Harris administration path, because regardless of what she tells you, she is all in on Biden's policies. Or go back to the 4 years prior to the Biden administration, where we had low inflation and low prices and great stuff. So, yeah. Anyway, all right, folks, that kind of does it for me for tonight. Head on over to rumble.com. Get yourself an account. It is free to sign up. And once you do, do a search for the American Perspective channel, and make sure you hit that green follow button to be notified every time I go live. Also, too, if you're already signed in at Rumble, please hit that thumbs up button, and hit all of those like buttons, thumbs up buttons, everything else on and across my Facebook, YouTube, and even X pages, because that all helps to get my videos seen and higher up in the rankings. We will see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening. Go listen to Trump. I'm sure he's still talking. Go take off and listen to Trump. We'll see you tomorrow, and good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.